Working at a cursed amusement park in West Virginia, 7 sinister rules you must not ignore. The shadows twisted around Emily Larkin as she stepped into Dread Hollow Amusement Park, a haunting specter of joy lost in the weeds. The rusting rides loomed like tombstones, sagging and silent under the glow of the cold moonlight. How had she come to this? From the hustle and exhilaration of Chicago to the eerie stillness of this derelict place, where laughter had faded into chilling echoes and dreams had turned to dust. Just 22, she took a deep breath, hoping to mask the growing anxiety curling in her gut. But the stillness choked her like a noose. It felt wrong, as if the park itself whispered a warning, an icy finger tracing her spine. Why had she agreed to take a night shift here? The promise of income had drawn her in, but the legends of missing workers fluttered through her mind, heavy like the fog that clung to the ground. As she punched in her time card, the air thickened around her. The first sinister element made itself known. A carnival clown stood grotesquely by the entrance, waving. Its painted smile morphed into something diabolical. "Play with us forever." The words etched across the grimy face felt like a warning, and a thrill sent shivers through her. The crumpled note appeared just as her locker swung open. Emily's hands trembled as she read, 7 sinister rules. At first it seemed like an elaborate joke, but the words sent her heart racing. Never connect with the shadows. Trust no one. Loyalty is your lifeline. The final warning stole her breath. Beware the whistler. He seeks those who stray. She dismissed the stories as silly ghost tales to frighten the young and naive. But then the laughter grew distant, and all she'd heard was a rise of static. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The carousel began to spin, yet no one was visible. Emily felt bile rise in her throat. Her heart thumped painfully as the creepy music floated around her, the familiar "Merrily We Roll Along" twisted by the night. The shadows pulsed, surrounding her. Each flicker and sway heightened her dread. She turned, scanning the desolate space, hoping to find comfort in familiarity, but only emptiness. Then there was Tommy. My God, where was her little brother? The weight of her fear crushed her. Time slipped through her fingers like sand as she began to search. Calling out into the night. Echoes of her voice mocked her, fading into the ominous quiet. The workers she knew merely glanced at her frantic state, indifference painted on their faces. "He's probably hiding, Emily," one of them chuckled. An unsettling grin plastered across their lips. But this wasn't a game to her. She could feel the darkness breathing, wrapping around her. Another whirling sound came from the depths. Something lurking in the shadows seemed to be watching, waiting. Panic swelled as she called Tommy's name louder. With each second that passed, dread festered deeper, wrapping around her heart. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, straining her mind. Was there really a figure? The whistler? Her pulse raced. What sort of madness had she walked into? As she pressed deeper into the park, the twisted paths distorting into something unrecognizable, the fog thickened around her. And somewhere in the distance, the dark figure moved. Would she escape its grasp, or would she feel the chilling breath of the whistler before dawn broke? Emily's voice trembled as she called for Tommy again. The chilling silence pressed down on her, stifling and heavy. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, drowning out the distant creaking of rusted metal. The carousel's jovial tune had become a haunting dirge, twisting into a melody that seemed to mock her desperation. "Tommy!" she shouted, her panic soaring. The oppressive fog thickened as if the park itself sought to envelop her whole. Every shadow seemed to dance, and every clatter rang louder, sending echoes bouncing ominously off the dilapidated rides. Everything felt broken here. She stumbled through a labyrinth of faded attractions, old tents, weathered games that no longer invited curious children. The air turned stale as she crossed the threshold into an area that had long been abandoned, overgrown with weeds and debris. "This isn't right," she whispered to herself, but the whisper came out strained and frightened. The note fluttered in her pocket like a trapped bird wanting out. "Never connect with the shadows." The words taunted her now. In the dim moonlight, she saw a flicker among the rubble, a dark figure darting behind an old funhouse, its shadow elongated as if it were reaching for her. Emily's breath hitched, her instincts screamed to run, but desperation for Tommy held her anchored in place. "Emily!" A voice broke the quiet. It was faint but unmistakable. She froze, listening intently, her heart pounding in rhythm with her rising hope. "Help!" The cry was soft, frightened. It resonated from deep within the fog-cloaked grounds, and Emily shot forward, following the sound like a lighthouse beacon amid a storm. But just as she approached the funhouse, a low whistle filled the air, eerie and unsettling, a dark serenade woven with despair. Emily halted, dread taking root in her gut. The shadows, those playful wraiths she was warned about, writhed at her feet like hungry serpents. Tommy's voice faded, swallowed by the surrounding darkness, replaced by sinister laughter. It was sharp and cruel, echoing around her like a chorus, further chilling her bones. "Tommy!" she burst out, trying to keep the fear from cracking her voice. Desperation propelled her into the funhouse, the mirrored walls reflecting her wild eyes. Each reflection spun her deeper into a nightmare. Every mirror twisted her image into something grotesque, amplifying her anxiety. "Where are you?" The laughter grew louder, and with it a swarm of shadows gathered. They twisted and spiraled, taunting her. Was this the effect of the Whistler's presence? Emily felt them close in, brushing against her like cold, damp fingers. She staggered toward the back exit, but the shadows flickered violently, blocking her path. The whispers tugged at her mind, chaotic and disjointed, sinking deeper into her thoughts. "Loyalty is your lifeline." The note resurfaced again, and she recalled it. Her heartbeat climbed. Was this about more than just her brother? Had the others made a choice she had yet to understand? In a flash of courage, she turned her back on the mirrors and danced toward the distortions of sound, determined to find Tommy. As she pressed deeper into the maze, a cold gust swept past her. Emily shivered, the air thickening with dread as an unsettling presence loomed. The Whistler, he was close. Panic surged as she heard his distinct, breathy whistle morphing into a haunting caress. She had to find Tommy, but how? Then she heard it again, his voice calling from somewhere deep within the shadows, accompanied by the chilling laughter. Was he in danger? Was she walking straight into the trap of the Whistler? Just as she turned a corner, a shadowy figure slipped between two funhouse mirrors, and in that moment, dread wrapped around her heart like a vice. "What now?" she thought. "Will I find Tommy, or become just another lost soul in Dread Hollow?" There, the darkness shifted, and the echoes of the Whistler's laughter resumed, spiraling into a crescendo that promised nothing but despair. What would she confront next in this twisted maze? Emily's heart raced, pounding against her rib cage like a caged animal desperate to escape.
The laughter grew deafening, warping into a sinister cacophony that echoed off the mirrors. She stood frozen, caught between the urge to flee and the desperate need to find Tommy. Just then, the cruel melody abruptly shifted, replaced by a whisper, soft, slithering around her mind. "Loyalty, your lifeline." The words washed over her like ice water, bringing clarity. This was a test, but of what? Determined not to let the shadows consume her, she pressed onward, stepping through the shifting darkness, inching closer to Tommy's voice and the chaos that followed it. Each corner she turned only deepened the web of terror. The mirrors reflected fractured images, Emily distorted into cruel parodies of herself, twisted and hollow-eyed. One moment she was laughing, another she was crying. The shifting forms taunted her, each step sending shivers down her spine, as if fingers from the depths of the shadows were reaching out to grasp at her. "Tommy!" she called again, louder this time, urgency lacing her voice. "Where are you?" A low, mocking chuckle echoed from the depths of the funhouse. The Whistler had arrived, and Emily could feel his sinister gaze stalking her through the fog. She wanted to cower, to run. Instead, she forced herself to breathe, fueled by the faint glimmer of hope that clung to her. Sweat dotted her brow. She reached for the note in her pocket, recalling the warnings etched in her mind. But the shadows enveloped her like an unwanted embrace. "Never connect with the shadows," she murmured, trying to ground her thoughts. Yet here she was, lowered into their depths, with no way out but forward. With each step, the laughter pulsed through her veins. It was intoxicating, drawing her in. Beneath that laughter, she caught a glimpse of a figure trapped between two reflections. It was dark, hunched over, and the silhouette quivered as though it was both alive and dead. "Tommy!" she shouted again, her voice echoing back at her, a ghastly mockery. The figure stirred, trembling. Slowly, the features became clearer, but they were not those of her brother. "Emily," a voice cut through the noise, a rasp that sent cold shivers racing down her spine. "You shouldn't have come." Her heart sank. This wasn't Tommy. Confusion creased her brow as terror clawed at her insides. "This isn't funny," she shot back. "Let him go." The figure stilled, its head tilting as if to evaluate her. Then it grinned, revealing teeth too sharp and eyes that glinted with malice. "You think you can save him?" It laughed, the cold sound wrapping around her like chains. Before she could process its words, a flash of movement along the mirrors caught her eye, and she saw it. Tommy, pale and wide-eyed, trapped in another mirrored space, reaching out to her. "Emily, help!" he cried, panic rife in his voice. The shadows laughed again, this time bursting with raw, chaotic energy. "To save him, you must give something in return. Loyalty must be tested." She felt bile rise in her throat. What did that even mean? "I won't let you take him," she screamed, shoving through the shadowy figures that threatened to engulf her. "Face the Whistler, or lose them both." Panic surged through her as the laughter crescendoed, a relentless wave of sound threatening to drown her. She had to make a choice: face whatever nightmare awaited her, or lose everything. As she lunged toward Tommy's outstretched hand, the darkness surged around her, closing in. But the shadows did not let go easily. "Will you risk it all to save what you love?" The laughter rang louder, swallowing her hope whole. In that moment of despair, Emily knew she had reached a point of no return. What awaited her in the dark heart of the funhouse, where the Whistler and the shadows conspired to trap her forever? Would she save Tommy, or seal both their fates in Dread Hollow? The darkness enveloped her.
like an oppressive blanket closing in tight. Emily's breath quickened as she stumbled, feeling the walls shift around her, seemingly alive and clamoring for her to give in. The whispering shadows hovered at the fringes of her vision, their grins growing sharper, hungrier. The air grew colder, thick with dread, a heavy fog filled with echoes and nightmares. "Tommy," she called, but her voice wavered against the cacophony of sinister laughter. Each note dripped with malice, a reminder that they were watching, waiting for a moment of weakness. Panic clawed at her throat as she darted toward Tommy's pleading silhouette. It flickered like a faulty light bulb, each rotation of the mirrors distorting him more. "I'm coming," she shouted, her fingers aching for his grasp. The distance felt eternal, stretching further the closer she dared to approach the edge of his reflection. Just then, the oppressive laughter shifted to a series of harsh whispers, coaxing her with velvety tones. "Emily, Emily." They twisted her name into something unrecognizable, a dark call, a clawing recklessness that pulled at her. She squeezed her eyes shut in a desperate attempt to block them out, shaking her head as if that could obliterate the dread. But when she opened them again, the truth crystallized. The reflections were wrong, the wrong Tommy, the wrong Emily. Each mirrored surface revealed a piece of her, a part of a love twisted and gnawed by darkness. "Is this who you want to be?" the shadowed figure hissed, stepping closer as the laughter grew fainter. "The moment you stepped in here, you stopped being loyal. You're just another lost child of Dread Hollow. You think love can save you?" "Shut up!" she screamed back, her voice wavering, but she pressed forward. She had to believe, had to keep moving. "Let him go!" The shadows twisted and writhed, forming a vortex of darkness that coalesced into a figure, the Whistler, statuesque and terrible. His presence filled the room, a darkened specter with a wide mouth curled into a cruel grin. "You're not the first to try, dear Emily. Loyalty is fickle, it bends with the wind." His chilly breath gusted against her, striking icy fear straight to her core. "But let's test your resolve." He gestured wildly, the mirrors vibrating to life as if they were watching an unholy spectacle. Each crack in the glass showed twisted reflections of her life, trust disintegrating into betrayal. Friends she thought she knew turned into shadows, mocking her, stripping her of every ounce of confidence. Loose echoes of laughter faded in and out, engulfing her senses and forcing her to relive every choice she'd made. "Do you love him?" he taunted. "Would you forsake yourself to save him?" Emily's heart thumped painfully against her ribs. There was no room for doubt. "Yes, I'd give anything," she cried, but the words felt like a bargain struck with the devil. "Very well," he said, his teeth gleaming like knives. "Bear witness." Suddenly, the mirrors spun out of control, a whirlwind of faces and shattered dreams. The laughter swelled into a shrieking pitch. She felt the very ground shift beneath her, reality collapsing like a house of cards. Survival instincts kicked in. She dove to the floor as the reflections exploded, showering her with shimmering shards that twinkled menacingly like stars fallen from the sky. She scrambled back to her feet, disoriented but determined. "Emily, please!" Tommy's voice edged through the chaos, raw and full of desperation. "I need you!" The darkness clutched at her once more, and for one breathless moment, Emily froze,
caught between her brother's cries and the malicious thrill creeping from the shadows. Would the test break her, or could the bond of loyalty guide her through this nightmare? Determined, she lifted her chin, ready to confront what lay ahead. "I will not lose you," she declared, as the shadows laughed around her. But just as she lunged toward the flickering light of Tommy's reflection, the floor gave way beneath her. What darkness awaited her on the other side? Did she still have the strength to confront the Whistler, or had she sealed her and Tommy's fate forever? The plunge was instant. A rush of air snatched her breath as Emily fell through the darkness, deeper and deeper into an abyss that felt alive, wrapping around her like cold fingers. She landed hard on an uneven surface, the impact reverberating through her bones. Pain shot up her arm, but she gritted her teeth, forcing herself to sit up and scan her surroundings. Flickering lights bobbed in the murky air, revealing an eerie carnival ground, a nightmarish collage of twisted amusement rides, ragged booths, and disheveled party banners flapping in a haunting breeze. The air was thick with a stale sweetness, an unsettling aroma that mixed with something metallic, sharp like blood. "Tommy!" she shouted, her voice echoing like a ghost in the empty expanse of the grounds. A distant wail caught her attention. Her heart raced. It sounded like her brother. She pushed herself to her feet, taking a few shaky steps forward. The ground felt soft and treacherous beneath her, the gravel crunching like bones. She followed the sound, desperation driving her onward as the night sky pressed in with oppressive weight. Each step brought her closer to an unlit booth, its sign barely hanging on by the threads of decay. "Freak show," it proclaimed, grotesque letters twisted into shapes that danced in the corners of her mind. The sight sent a chill down her spine. Inside, the air was thick with ancient dust, and the ambiance dripped with despair. She peered through a splintered window and saw Tommy, his figure tied to a dilapidated carousel, wide-eyed and trembling. He was surrounded by shadows that twitched and danced, their forms shifting unnaturally. "Tommy!" she cried out again, but the shadows turned their gazes to her. Their eyes glowed hollow and hungry, as if they had a taste for despair. Emily's heart raced as she dashed forward.
But the carousel began to spin unexpectedly, faster, the shadowy figures mimicking its movement. "Stop!" she yelled, but the ride only responded with a wailing sound that cut through her soul like an icy blade. Suddenly, the Whistler appeared, towering over the spinning spectacle, with that wicked smile etched across his face. "You think you can save him? What fun would that be?" he mocked, waving a hand as more shadows coalesced at the edges, encroaching with malicious intent. "Let him go!" she screamed, her resolve burning bright despite her fear. "Such fire!" he boomed, his laughter echoing all around her as the darkness roared back with him, weaving tighter, coiling around her limbs, pressing against her throat. "You must play the game, dear Emily. Would you risk everything for him, sacrificing your very essence?" Against her better judgment, she nodded fiercely. "I would." "Then prove it." With one flick of his wrist, the carousel halted, and ghostly tendrils licked at Tommy, pulling him into shadow as he called out to her, "Emily, help!" With no time left, Emily lunged at the carousel's edge, ready to leap onto the attic-like platform. She could feel the shadows stretching and tugging at her, trying to pull her into their clutches, to rip her apart like a fragile doll. The Whistler's eyes glinted with a cruel joy. Make your choice. Pick a way to save him, or be consumed. Panic surged. Options flooded her mind. An escape, or a chance to confront the darkness. What was the price she had to pay? "Emily!" Tommy's voice was a desperate gasp, slicing through the haze of terror surrounding her. Before she could comprehend the consequences, she released a scream. "I choose him!" The moment she declared it, a blinding light erupted from the center of the carousel, crashing against the darkness. Shadows writhed as if caught in a storm, shrieking in anguish. But Emily was spiraling into the blinding light, uncertainty clawing at her heart. Would she return to the nightmare, or was this the key to ending it all? What lay beyond that searing brightness? Would it lead to freedom, or to her final undoing? The light enveloped Emily completely, a blinding brilliance that drowned out every sound. And then, just like that, she was flung back into darkness. The ground felt solid beneath her again, but the smell, oh, that sweet metallic scent, was still thick in the air. She gasped, blinking rapidly to clear her vision. Emily found herself in a different part of the carnival, beneath a canopy of stars that felt unnaturally close. The carousel stood still, but remnants of the shadows lingered like a sickening fog. The ride seemed more ominous now, as if it had absorbed the very fear she had experienced. "Tommy!" she yelled again, but her voice was swallowed by the surrounding silence. Sliding to her feet, she desperately scanned for him. The echoes of her own heartbeat thundered in her ears. A series of distant giggles made her turn. Sharply to the side, her heart dropping. They felt wrong, too high-pitched, too happy. She stumbled forward, seeking the source of the noise, following the path past abandoned stalls, their shutters rattling in the breeze like ghosts rattling chains. A sign hung askew above one booth, reading "Wonder Tent." The laughter grew louder, a sickening sound, blending with the whirring of rusty gears somewhere in the depths of the carnival. As Emily approached, the tent's entrance yawned open, as if inviting her inside. Hesitating, she took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Tommy!" she called once more, her voice tinged with desperation. Inside, dimly lit by flickering bulbs, stood a room of warped mirrors. Twisted reflections grinned back at her, distorted versions of herself filling the space. But it wasn't just her. They were joined by figures of all shapes and sizes. Many were familiar. Phantoms of lost souls caught in mirth, their faces frozen in terror. "Welcome," a voice called. The air thickened, shadows swirling as if the darkness itself spoke. It was the Whistler's laughter, weaving through the reflections. "Emily, you're quite the brave girl, but are you really ready to play?" She took a deep step back. "What have you done to my brother?" "Nothing yet," the voice cooed, the mirrors echoing with a chilling softness. "But if you want to see him again, why not join the fun? After all, I'm just a humble host at this carnival of secrets." A thrum of dread pulsed through her. What secrets could there be? With the last remnants of courage clinging to her, she shouted, "I want to see him! What do I have to do?" The entire room trembled, and the mirrors rippled like water. The shadows darkened, and suddenly she was face to face with her own reflection. But it wasn't just her. Behind her, a twisted image of Tommy appeared, tied in knots of shadow, with a smile that was most definitely not his. "No," she breathed, recoiling as the image cackled, enveloped in darkness. "Choose wisely," the Whistler whispered, appearing behind her reflection with a leer that stretched impossibly wide. "You can play for him, or you can lose yourself forever." Emily felt a chill crawl up her spine, her heart pounding wildly. The swirling reflections began to twist around her, pressing inward. She felt the very air grow heavy with her decision, the whispered taunts building around her. What if his laughter was just another trick? "Play the game?" she murmured, unsure. "What game?" "Ah, my dear, you must survive the trial of truth within," he chuckled, hands weaving in the air as if conjuring the very currents that threatened to rip her apart.
Or you can simply join the show. It's a choice for you to make. Emily's heart raced. A trial or surrender to madness. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to escape this twisted circus. But Tommy's plight nested in her mind, forcing her to stand firm. "Let's play," she declared, resolve tightening around her.
Her like a rope. I will win him back. The mirrors clinked like broken glass, and shadows closed in, melding around her. "Then let's begin your journey," the Whistler shouted, as the laughter crescendoed, surrounding her in a cacophony of sinister delight. What perils awaited her in this dark game? What truths would she uncover? With her brother's life hanging in the balance, Emily felt the ground shift under her feet, and dread pooled low in her stomach. She was only beginning to understand the macabre depth of the carnival's secrets, and the ultimate price of winning. The mirrors shattered, and the world around Emily twisted into chaos. She felt herself being pulled through a corridor of darkness, drawn deeper into the carnival's heart. The laughter faded, replaced by an echoing silence that pressed in from every direction. Her heart thrummed painfully as she landed on a hard, cold surface, scattering a handful of broken glass that clinked and clattered like the sound of her own nerves fraying. She scrambled to her feet, but the darkness pressed against her, a living thing, swirling and shifting, eager to consume her. "Where are you? Tommy!" she shouted, her voice a desperate plea floating into the void. A faint glimmer caught her attention, a flicker of light breaking through the overwhelming gloom. Instinct drove her forward. She stumbled into a narrow hall, walls lined with grotesque carnival posters, their cheerful images smeared or scratched as if someone tried to claw them away. "Come one, come all!" screamed the words, but they felt tainted, promising joy that was long extinguished. As she approached the source of the light, the air thickened again, heavy and cloying. The scent of blood mingled with sugar and confetti, creating a sickening sweetness that made her stomach turn. She pushed through a curtain of tangled ribbons, stepping into a macabre scene. Before her was a stage, draped in dark velvet, that glimmered with an unsettling sheen. Ethereal light pulsed, emanating from a large, grimy crystal ball perched in the center. In its depths she glimpsed shadows flitting in chaotic dances. They flickered past, revealing moments of horror. Lost souls like Tommy, trapped and pleading, their faces contorted in fear. "Welcome to the trial of truth!" boomed a voice, deep and echoing, wrapping around her like a serpent. The Whistler emerged from the shadows, a figure both magnificent and terrifying. His attire shimmered with toxic colors, a twisted jester, his eyes glinting with a madness that chilled her to the bone. "You chose to play. Now you must confront the truths that await." "What do you want from me?" she gasped, backing away, but he approached with a dance, circling her, a grin stretching impossibly wide. "Not what I want, but what you will uncover," he replied, his voice a melodious lilt that held an edge of mockery. "Each truth you reveal will either bind you closer to your brother or tear you apart." Suddenly, the crystal ball exploded with a blinding light, painting the stage in flickering scenes. Emily watched in horror as moments from her life played out, her happiest memories twisted into monstrous farces. Friends laughed, only to be surrounded by shadows that clawed at their throats. Her own face twisted into agony, contrasting with the joy of childhood games that turned sinister. "No, this isn't real!" she screamed, panic coursing through her veins. But the Whistler's laughter cut through her protests, vibrant and cruel. "It is as real as you make it. We will uncover your truths, the deepest fears that clawed at your heart. Only then can you hope to save him." With a fierce determination, she stepped forward, gripping the crystal ball. "I will face whatever I have to. I will find Tommy." "Then let the games begin," he whispered, and the light vanished. Emily stood alone again in the thick darkness, the laughter replaced by a deafening silence. With a heart racing against the gloom, she had to find her brother. But with the darkness growing heavier, she knew something sinister was thickening around her. What truths awaited her? How deeply would she have to dig to uncover the horror woven within her own life? Before she could process her next move, shadows shifted again, awakening with intent. She was not alone, and the darkness was hungry. Would she find Tommy, or would the carnival consume her whole? The tension thickened as she took a trembling step forward, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. But she couldn't. With everything on the line, she pressed onward into the void. The silence buzzed in Emily's ears, an oppressive weight that pressed against her chest. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to move forward, each step a war between fear and a fierce will to find Tommy. The shadows slithered at the edges of her vision, whispering her name in tones of mockery. "Emily, Emily." They were like tendrils, creeping closer, testing her resolve. Ahead, the corridor widened into an expansive room bathed in darkness. Emily squinted, but saw no sign of her brother. The flickering lights revealed only distorted shapes, their outlines shifting unnaturally. Heart pounding, she felt the pulse of something deep within the carnival, something that recognized her fear. Suddenly, a figure darted past her. She gasped, reaching out, but grasped only empty air. "Tommy?" she called, dread pooling in her stomach. "Don't," came a voice, dry and crackling, as the shadows coalesce into another figure, a girl, perhaps her age, her features twisted in a permanent grimace. "Don't go into the dark. It seeks what it wants." "What do you mean?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "Have you seen my brother? His name is Tommy." The girl's laugh was unsettling, echoing against the walls like broken glass. "You won't see him until you face your truth. Everyone here has something to reveal, a secret, a fear. It's what keeps us trapped." She gestured to the clinging shadows that licked at their feet like flames. "Starving for oxygen. What do I have to do?" Emily whispered, a cold sweat forming at her temples. "Relive your moments," the girl hissed. "You must endure whatever they show you. Only then can the Whistler be satisfied." Emily's stomach twisted. She remembered the fractured images from the crystal ball, memories distorted into terror. "But what if the carnival takes me too?" "Then you become a part of the show," the girl replied, her eyes glimmering with a haunted fear. "You might even end up like her." She pointed toward a writhing mass at the edge of the room. Emily's heart dropped. At first, the form looked human, but as it approached, its true nature emerged. Pastel colors clashed grotesquely against flesh, a distorted face frozen in a scream, an agonized kind of laughter spilling from its mouth. It swirled closer, a raiding specter of darkness, and Emily stumbled back, horrified. "No, I won't become like that!" Her voice rang out, echoing back with urgency. "Then face your fears. Only the strongest survive," the girl shrieked, as her own shadow began to move independently, dragging her into the darkness. Emily lunged towards the girl, but it was too late.
The shadows engulfed her with a satisfied hiss. Alone again, Emily felt the cold grasp of loneliness tighten around her. She had to keep moving. The laughter of the whistler drifted from somewhere deep within the carnival, teasing and haunting. Driven by a surge of defiance, she pushed forward into the darkened expanse, her trembling hands brushing against the cool walls that felt alive, pulsating under her touch. Each heartbeat echoed through her body, a reminder that time was slipping away, and with it, the hope of finding Tommy. A flicker of light caught her attention once more. She followed its beckoning glow, dread and determination intertwining. It led her to a door, ancient and warped, where whispers skittered across its surface. "Open it, Emily. Discover the darkness within," the whispers taunted, familiar yet sinister. Her hands trembled against the doorframe. Could she risk what lay behind it? The shadows coiled tightly around her ankles, urging her on. She felt the weight of promises unfulfilled, of the horrors waiting just behind the door. Taking a deep breath, she gripped the handle and turned it, steeling herself for what awaited. Would she uncover a truth that bound her closer to Tommy, or would it tear her apart forever? As the door creaked wide, gusts of cold air rushed forth, sending a shiver down her spine. What lay within was a nightmare waiting to unfold. Would Emily emerge intact, or finally succumb to the carnival's intoxicating darkness? The door swung open with a reluctant groan, as though it hadn't been disturbed in ages. Emily hesitated at the threshold, the chill wrapping tightly around her body, merging with her rising panic. She stepped over the threshold, and the light enveloped her, revealing a room that defied logic and reason. The walls pulsed with dark, swirling
Colors shifting like oil in water. Strange shapes danced across the surface, distorting her vision. A mirror stood at the far end, a grotesque reflection warping her features into a blend of terror and confusion. She caught glimpses of herself, but they were fleeting. It wasn't just her form. The mirror displayed bursts of memories. Tommy laughing in the park, their mother's worried face, shadows lurking in the periphery. "Face it," a voice whispered from the mirror, echoing her own thoughts. "Face your fears, Emily." She stumbled backward, heart racing. "No!" she cried out, clutching her head as the memories surged forward, a tidal wave threatening to sweep her under. She felt her breaths become shallow, panic sparking in her chest like fireworks. As Emily gasped for air, the mirror rippled, and an apparition emerged. It was a boy, small and sweet-faced, with brown hair and wide blue eyes. "Tommy! Tommy!" she shouted, but he looked through her as if she were a foggy memory, lost in a labyrinth of fears. His mouth moved, forming words that she couldn't hear. The air grew thick with silence. Then the chilling laughter of the whistler echoed, a mocking taunt that made her skin crawl. The boy rippled like a mirage, fading in and out. "Help me!" Tommy's voice pierced through the whispers, thin and echoing, begging for something she couldn't understand. "Where are you?" she yelled, desperation clawing at her throat. She reached out, but the more she ran toward him, the further he floated away. "Tommy, please!" The laughter intensified, drowning out his voice, and suddenly the mirror cracked. Tiny fissures spiderwebbed across its surface, each fracture a reminder of a failed promise, a moment of fear. Emily stumbled back, panic rising anew, the lamplight flickering ominously above her like a heartbeat nearing its end. "Relive your truth," the voice from the shadows murmured again. The weight of those words pressed upon her, a stone anchor in her soul. A choice hovered in the air, either confront the terrifying memories or remain trapped within this carnival of whispers and shadows. Desperately, Emily closed her eyes, envisioning the moments she had avoided.
The day she chose to chase after a fleeting butterfly instead of staying with Tommy. The time she laughed at his deep fear of heights. The secrets she held back from their mother. Each image hit her like a piercing arrow. She felt the embarrassment, the guilt, the regret wash over her in waves, making her dizzy. The laughter faded, replaced with an eerie stillness, the shadows lining the walls momentarily still. Emily opened her eyes. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her heart racing. "I'm so sorry, Tommy." In response, the cracks in the mirror shimmered. The darkness around her turned from a menacing presence to something almost intolerably beautiful, swirling like a galaxy. Tommy's face appeared again, clearer this time. "Find me," he whispered, hope blooming within his eyes. Encouraged, Emily reached forward, placing her
Palm against the cold reflection. She could feel warmth gathering behind the glass. It felt alive. Just as she took another step, the ground trembled beneath her, and the shadow creatures shrieked from the corners, erupting into chaos. "No!" she yelled as the vibrations intensified. The room twisted, and she realized it wasn't just a door anymore. It was a portal. Would she risk everything to save Tommy? Just as her heart surged with resolve, darkness slammed into her, a wave of cold terror that threatened to drag her under. She gripped the edges of the mirror, fighting against the swirling chaos. Questions raced through her mind. Could she break through? And there, in the heart of all the swirling darkness, Tommy's eyes locked onto hers. Did he believe she'd choose to jump in after him to find the light? But as the shadows closed in, darkness slammed into her, a wave of cold terror that threatened to drag her under. She gripped the edges of the mirror, fighting against the swirling chaos. Questions raced through her mind. Could she break through? And there, in the heart of all the swirling darkness, Tommy's eyes locked onto hers. Did he believe she'd choose to jump in after him to find the light? But as the shadows closed in, a single thought thundered through her. She might not be ready for the truth. Would she have the courage to leap into that abyss, or would the Whistler consume her whole? Emily's heart was racing. The portal behind the mirror shimmered like a fading star, moments of doubt swirling in her mind. Could she face it head on? Could she dive into the very depths of the shadows, knowing what lay beyond? She had to find Tommy. Summoning every ounce of courage, she stepped closer to the mirror. "I will face the darkness," she declared, every word a promise. The shadows hissed at her, pulling taut as the weight of the decision pressed down. "Such bravado!" The Whistler's voice echoed from the corners, weaving through the air as the shadows began their chaotic dance. "Let's see if it holds." Before she could blink, the world shifted, a dark tide swirling in its unforgiving grip. She charged forward, feeling the embrace of darkness slip around her like whiskey-soaked velvet. The shadows howled, screeching with delight as they tangled around her limbs, each one a taunt and a snare. But the thought of Tommy broke through the haze, urging her on. "Hold on, Tommy," she urged, her voice a lifeline she cast into the enveloping dark. Just as she leapt, the blinding light burst forth again, consuming her with warmth, unraveling the shadows clawing for her. The world expanded, dissolving into brightness with each pulse of her heart. And there he was, Tommy, standing amidst a field of glowing flowers, bathed in golden light. "Emily!" His voice called out like a melody rising above chaos. He was safe. Hope ignited in her chest, and she reached forward, her surroundings blurring, lights swirling into motion as she grasped for him. But darkness slithered at the edges, encroaching ever so slowly. It whispered promises and threats like a chorus of lost souls. "You think light can save you? You forget the shadows thrive on doubt." She pushed back the fear, willing it away.
No, I choose love. The flowers bloomed brighter at her resolve, each petal a promise of unwavering determination.
Light pulsed in response, cutting through the shadows like a sword. "Together, Tommy," she shouted, pulling him into her embrace. "We can face them together." The darkness recoiled, howls fading into agonized wails, drawn back like storm clouds dispersing. The whistler's laughter faded into silence, anger morphing into desperation. How is this possible? The ground beneath them pulsated, releasing threads of light that wrapped around their fingers, knitting them together. "Hope can shatter any darkness," Tommy grinned, warmth radiating from him, chasing away the night. With a surge of energy, they stood united, facing the shadows as they trembled. "You will not take us!" they shouted in unison. It was their strength, steady and vibrant, mingling with the warmth of their bond. Luminous beams shot out from their intertwined hands, carving a pathway through the oppressive darkness. The carnival trembled as the light spread, illuminating corners filled with remnants of forgotten joy, exposing the shadows that hid. With one final explosion, the shadows screamed, collapsing inward, shrieks echoing as they were sucked into the light, banished by the truth, the love shared unbroken, unmarred. The laughter of the whistler faded with them, swallowed into the void, never to return. Emily squeezed Tommy's hand tighter, the warmth of freedom coursing through them like wildfire. "We made it!" she exclaimed, her heart lifting as colors burst around them, every flicker a promise of laughter and joy carried away from despair. "Together, always," he responded, a bright smile illuminating the space. As the carnival faded, transforming back into ghostly echoes, the sky above shimmered with stars, a tranquility wrapping around them like a heartbeat. They stood at the edge of a new beginning, the remnants of their past shaping a brighter future. With one last breath of freedom, they walked hand in hand into the dawn, leaving behind the shadows of Dread Hollow. The journey had forged them anew, their bond unyielding. Every fear faced, every pain conquered, led to this moment, a celebration of resilience, a testament to love. And as Emily looked back, one thought lingered, an echo of courage. Love will always win against the dark. The screen faded to black with a sense of serene closure, leaving the audience with the hope that echoed long after their story ended. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive story spilling from the shadows. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions.